Thank you very much. When I was a kid growing up, read a book that really impressed me. This book was called The Wump World. It was by Bill Peet, and it was about these animals like giant guinea pigs that lived in a perfect place. Great water, great plants. And all of a sudden, they got invaded by some people came from a planet called Pollutus, and they were pollutions. And they came because they had ruined their own planet, and they came to the Wump World to seek a new home. They built cities, and all of a sudden, at the end of the day, they built too much, and they had to go to another planet. In the meantime, the Wumps came out of the cave, the buildings collapsed, greenery came back, and they finally got their planet back. Today, we use 85 million bottles every 3 minutes on this planet, is a National Geographic estimate. 50% of all the plastic that we use, roughly, is a product that is permanent material and will last for hundreds of years. So when you stir a cup of coffee or you eat a salad for a few minutes, that material can continue to affect the ecosystem well beyond our life. And roughly 90% of all plastic, even though there's a lot of recycling bins, never gets recycled. That actually is a huge opportunity because this is a stored energy, it's petroleum. The UN estimates that we use and dump roughly 11 billion pounds of debris into the ocean every year. Last year, we started an expedition called Project Kaisei, named after the tall ship Kaisei. Also means ocean planet in Japanese. We went out with Scripps Oceanography to deal with an area in the middle of the ocean where a lot of this plastic congregates. Some of you might know it's the North Pacific Gyre. It is literally thousands of miles in size, and it aggregates there as the currents in the ocean go clockwise. Used to be that just organic material went there. Now, material that does not biodegrade is what basically gets stuck in that area. There's 5 of these in the world, and we've gone out to study the impacts, try to figure out solutions, and bring a collaboration of groups together to prevent it from getting in there and find solutions to fix it. It's a perfect case of tragedy to the commons. It's a global issue. We all use it, but there are some laws, but they're not used in the right way, and they're not easily enforceable, and there's no boundaries. 50% of the ocean is in international waters. There's no government to call on, and there's no one you can say, you clean it up. We all made this problem. When we were out on this boat, on both boats, we did a lot of science studies, and this is important because we were the first group. These are canisters of water that went down to 500 meters. Each is only 10 liters in size. And unexpectedly, when we were doing our water testing, we found a piece of plastic at 200 meters depth and another at 160. This device called a Manta Troll, it's only a meter wide. We trolled regularly sampling 3,500 miles of water in 30 days, and we got plastic in every single sample. So it wasn't as if we were out looking for an endangered species, trying to find that footprint after 2 weeks, and finally finding evidence of life. We found this everywhere we went. Plastic does not biodegrade. In the ocean, it breaks down from the sun, and that causes a problem because as it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, those pieces get into the lower and lower parts of the food chain. So the smaller a product is, the more chemical impact it can have on our organism. The bigger it is, the more physical impact it might have when something eats it. Something about plastic in the ocean is that when it gets into the water, it gets toxified by other pollutants that are in the water. So it becomes a carrier, like a magnet, of toxins. So as wildlife eats this and it gets into their system, those toxins can come off in their body tissue and then go up the food chain into eventually where we are. Something interesting on that last shot is there was not much colors of red and orange. That's because those red and orange colors are the most things that look like food to animals. They look like eggs or shrimp, so they get eaten faster. This is a hatchet fish, only 5 centimeters in size, but it's quite important because this fish only lives at 200 to 300 meters in depth, and it doesn't surface. And we caught a few of these when we were doing our deep sampling. And one of this guy had a piece of plastic in him. So that means at some point the buoyancy is changing of the plastic, and that's going down, raining down on things below it. You've probably seen albatross chicks that are fed plastic by their parents, and whales. All aspects of the food chain have been known to have plastic in them. The difference with the ocean is there's no way to check body count. Unless something comes up onto the shore, we have no way to count and understand what we've been doing in the last 50 years since we've been using this product. Sylvia Earle says a great quote. She's a very famous oceanographer. The rest of the world can get along without us, but we can't get along without them. So how did this all happen? Well, exactly 50 years ago, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh went exploring. They set a world record. They went 11,000 meters into the ocean, 7 miles into the Mariana Trench. They got to the bottom, looked out their porthole, saw some silt come up, came back up and said, "We broke the record." That's awesome. That decade, Kennedy started to send people to space, and in 1969 we sent someone to the moon. Since then we've looked up, and we've forgotten about looking back and at the ocean. When the first guys got to the moon, they said we get all the way up to the moon. We looked back at the Earth as it's rising in the morning, and they said we came all the way to the moon to discover the Earth. So this is some great images of what we've been able to find since we now have technology to go from space and look back at our planet. So some people say that it's too big of a problem to solve. You can't do it. It costs too much. Well, how do you put a value on something like this? How do you say it costs too much when you can bring innovation and technology just like the space race to something that is actually very logical? In fact, when you do a cleanup, in most cases, you don't get the opportunity to have a valuable asset when you bring it back in. In this case, we have a plastic, it's a stored energy. If we can do this with low energy and low marine life loss, we can get some of it out of the water, and that inspires people. And this is a perfect example for the planet to get together and work on something. In fact, I was very inspired this morning to see Jem, and when I first saw her perform, I saw her because of her music capability and what I thought is her ability to inspire and talk to the youth of our population. But then I found out her name, Jem, means get everyone moving. And that's really what we need to do in this kind of project for the ocean. We're looking at ways to turn this debris into a material usable, something like a diesel fuel or other secondary products. And when you do that, you can inspire prevention and change on land. Today in the region, we have another space race. We are spending billions of dollars for people to be the first to go somewhere where we went 40 years ago. Imagine what we can do with some of that money if we took that technology and used it to impact some of the things on this planet that can help our environment. When we go to space, there's not a lot we can do there. There's no life, no water. In the foreseeable future, nowhere for us really to go. But we continue to go out. We send satellites. In fact, the marine debris problem is very, very similar to the plastic vortex. Pervasive debris all over the place, very hard to clean up. but we'll spend billions of dollars to be doing this in the name of technology and exploration. But we've forgotten a lot about what's going on land. Our forests are burning for agriculture and other reasons, deforestation. The ocean's on fire. In fact, when you look at the oil spill and you think about our lack of capability and resources, it really makes you think, what have we been thinking? To put the oil spill in context, if you believe the numbers that 50,000 barrels of oil a day were coming out from under the ocean, that's roughly the same amount of oil that's needed every day to make plastic bottles in the United States. So we have a big planet. A huge amount of that is water. 10 years ago, the world got together and said, we want to have marine reserves in 10% of our water. Today, it's still less than 1%. We haven't done anything. The laws are there, but we haven't used them. Sylvia Earle says that we have 10 years left. By that time, species will be gone. Our ability to keep life going will be hindered, and we will have lost a huge opportunity. So I challenge someone, a company, countries, people, $1 billion. Sounds like a lot of money, but when you consider a space program and what we're using to look at technology far, far away, if we can focus that back on the ocean, we can make a huge, huge impact. We can save the fisheries, we can improve pollution coming out of river mouths, and we can bring new technology. $1 billion really is nothing. So we challenge someone to come and be a hero for this kind of task. To put this into context, a few weeks ago, a piece of land down the street in Hong Kong was sold almost for $1 billion for a couple buildings. There are people that have this money, and there are governments that can be heroes from coming to do it. We can improve our fishing. We've really plundered our assets in the ocean, and we've used it as a dump. And now is the time to all of us get together and actually take this opportunity to lead and do something huge for the planet. A great quote from Van Jones is that the technology we're carrying around today in our pockets is almost more than what the US government had when we sent people to the moon. But the problem is that our goals and objectives are too small given the amount of technology we have to use today. So the challenge is, are we ready to get together and work on this project of the ocean, which will really save our planet? Thank you.